let's start with the quarterback situation. I don't know that he gave us a whole lot there, but I'm going to take him at his word that it is a flat out man versus man competition. We're going to let it fly and see who's the best quarterback when we get to week 1.
Well, first of all, can you get this red off of my screen real quick?
I was going to make mention. You may not like the that's one of the voice of college football colors, not dreaded team down south.
That's all right. Way. Yeah, we'll deal with it today. I mean, but yeah, I think, you know, I actually recorded a podcast last night with a reporter from Michigan, and I thought, and it was a guy that was at Media Days, and he said, and I thought it from watching it, Jim Harbaugh seemed very comfortable, and he's not always looking and sounding comfortable up on a podium. I think that he has gotten more and more just to be himself up there, and now, you know, walking into Big Ten Media Days right now is probably the best time of his life, right? Every year for the past 7 years, it's been, you got to answer the question about Ohio State and how you're going to beat them and how you're going to do that. This time he gets to puff his chest out and talk about how they did beat them and go to the Big Ten championship. So I was, you know, pretty impressed with how he handled himself and just, you know, the confidence, and then his players as well. But jumping into the quarterback situation too, you know, he's very cryptic with it. You know, it was a classic Jim Harbaugh quote of his quarterback situation. It's been like that for every single year, even when you knew Shea Patterson was going to be the starter type of deal. But I think that's actually the truth this season, right? I think it really is a 1A, 1B type situation, because how do you sit the guy that brought you to your first Big Ten championship in 17 years? I really don't know how you can say, all right, we're just going to overpass you and go to the next guy. But then it's also at the same time, how do you overlook the talent that J.J. McCarthy brings in as well?
See, Justin, I hear so many fans say this, and some media people as well. And I just can't understand a scenario in which, let's say, you know, or Jim Harbaugh knows in his heart of hearts, I want to start J.J. McCarthy by the conclusion. I just think we can get to where we need to go with him.
Yeah.
Why would you even start Cade McNamara in week 1? He's going to make the right decisions. He's going to make the right reads. He's going to do the right things. They have easy opponents. How do you bench a guy that's 5-0 that's got like a 12-1 TD to pick ratio? You can't justify that.
That's where I think it's going to be so difficult, because I think that, honestly, I think you're 100% right. I think if you want J.J. McCarthy to be the starter by week 5, let's call it, then you have to have him be the starter coming out of camp and going into week 1, because they're going to run the ball 78 times against Hawaii and score 85 points, and Cade McNamara won't throw an incompletion possibly, you know? And so I'm with you, and I think it's going to be that tough situation, but I do know what Jim Harbaugh loves, and that's a guy who manages and takes care of the ball, and that's Cade McNamara. And I just think, you know, the only thing that I think could happen in those first few games is, what if they do a Brady and Henson and like split it up quarter by quarter or half by half, and all of a sudden JJ does get some meaningful snaps in those first 4 games and he just blows it out of the water. The ball's coming out of his arm 10 times as fast. He's making guys miss. That's what I think it would have to be a spectacular outing game after game for J.J. McCarthy to take over that, if Cade McNamara is the guy going into week 1.
So, yeah, I think that's the way you got to approach it. Either you come out of camp saying JJ's the best, and it's got to be a situation where he actually proved it, or else you're trying to fool your players. Nobody knows outside, but you're trying to fool your players into thinking when they're like, no, Cade actually ran the offense better in August camp. So you can't have that happen. Or you just say, you come out of August camp and say, man, still too tough to tell. Let's let them both go at it these first 3 or 4 weeks. Because the other point to my first scenario about starting Cade with the thought that JJ is going to be the guy in game 5 or game 6, you're also throwing him into the fire when the schedule ramps up in a hurry. You
Yep.
want to throw him in against, I know he doesn't get thrown in because he's got packages run for him and so forth. But in
Right.
terms of being the starter that carries the entire game, all of a sudden he's facing an Iowa defense, a Penn State defense without getting those reps.
And we kind of thought it last year too. I had the same thought. I was like, you know, at some point, Cade, we all thought Cade was going to slip up at some point last year, and then JJ was going to get thrown in. And we thought that was going to be the case, like at Penn State when you're down 24-17 in the fourth quarter or something like that, you know, and it didn't end up happening. But, you know, it does feel like that's one of the only situations where JJ does take over is if Cade stumbles and it's like a panic button type moment, and then you're not setting JJ up for success at all, you know? So I really do want to see him, even if they're up by 30, get some meaningful reps in the first half, and not a one play at a time. I think he should be getting like one drive at a time in those first few games just to see how he does command the offense. How does he lead them down the field? How does he go, you know, game in and game out? Thank you, Sue. Appreciate that. But I think it's one of those situations where it's win-win for Jim Harbaugh, right? I think until it's lose-lose, because I think it's one of those things where, you know, you don't want to get into a situation where you mind screwed both of them, and now, like, you know, you don't really know what the situation is. So it'll be interesting how it all plays out.
And one of the reasons why I go back to the earlier point about we must have an anti-Michigan crowd here. We usually have a pro-Michigan crowd. Right. I may have more Michigan followers than any other team in the country, but they're not showing up this morning. They'll catch you on the replay, but you're not going to feel the love immediately, Justin, here.